Hey, how's it going, everybody? This is MegaShadowFist, and welcome back to Ace Attorney Trials and Tribulations. It's the final countdown. You might be wondering why I'm saying that. That's because this should be the final recording session of the game. I don't think I'm going to be able to get 4 full episodes. I think I might be able to get 3, judging off of how much footage NCS had after the point that we stopped at. I think we should have about 3 episodes left. Without further ado, let's go ahead and continue. From save point, I'm nice and rejuvenated and everything. I'm not tired like I was at the end of the previous recording session, so hopefully we'll be able to end things off with a bang here. You mean Pearls, don't you? We had to make sure she didn't channel Dahlia Hawthorne. Well, how does her voice go? Like, I very rarely use it, so I keep forgetting. Well, Pearl? What are you going to do tonight? Well, if you like, you can come to my room. Perhaps we can read some books together. We thought we could prevent her from playing her part in Morgan's plan, but she never showed up. She was worried and followed me to the inner temple. That was the thing we were most afraid of, and that's why Misty Faye had to do the channeling herself. She channeled Dahlia Hawthorne into her own body. What? What do you mean? If she channeled the spirit first, then Pearls wouldn't be able to do it herself. As Master of Kurain, Misty Faye's power was supreme. I feel like I'm not doing Godot's voice properly. So that's how it went down. She channeled Dahlia Hawthorne so that Pearl Faye wouldn't be able to. What? What? Is this true? My role in the plan was to make sure no one is going to hurt Maya Faye. That's why I hid myself at the inner temple, just in case you needed to be safe from Dahlia Hawthorne. Godot. Anyway, that's all I'm going to admit to. Trite. Huh? There's no doubt about it, you're a great defense lawyer, but you're going to have to do the rest yourself. The background leading up to this incident has been laid bare. There's just one question remaining, Mr. Wright. Who killed the victim? There are only 2 possible suspects right now. Maya Faye, and I'm sad to say, you, Mr. Godot. Well, Trite, if you're the real deal, then finish this thing once and for all. Show us beyond a shadow of a doubt that you can finish this on your own. No, Nick! Please don't! Maya. I heard the whole thing from my sister in the medical office. That's why I have to protect Mr. Godot. I can't do it. I can't testify against him. After all, he's the man who put his life on the line to protect Mia, and me too. Maya, I know that. Nick! But even so, it doesn't absolve him of his crime. Please, Maya, testify. Miss Faye, your testimony, please. This is the final testimony. Don't bother trying to hide anything, because I'll know. I want to hear the truth from your own lips. I understand. I'm sure you're right. I'm ready now, Nick. Alright, young lady, tell us about the moments before you lost consciousness. What exactly happened at the time of the murder? Witness testimony, the time of the murder. Just before it happened, I think I saw some red lights, 3 of them. I thought I'd ask for help, but just then I was splattered with blood. She wasn't dead though, and she struck back at the enemy behind her. Suddenly, the red lights went out and the whole area was dark. Just at the moment, there was a horrible scream. Right after that, Dahlia collapsed and I lost consciousness. These red lights! I thought you said you don't remember seeing them! I'm sorry. I thought I saw them, but then they disappeared all of a sudden. Ha! Things break, Trite, even the best of theories. Who was it that stabbed Misty Faye? It looks like you still can't prove it. Maya's telling the truth this time. I know it. The rest is up to me. Well then, Mr. Wright, proceed with your final cross-examination of the witness. The time of the murder. I got kind of distracted there for a second. Let's go ahead and save the game, please, since we just started the next thingy. If you don't mind, I hope you don't mind, because if you don't mind, then you got to get the mind. I don't even know what I'm doing. Just before it happened, I think I saw some red lights. 3 of them. Lights shining in the dark? I don't think you can make a mistake about that. Yeah, you're right. I think I saw them, but I can't say for certain. And I can't tell you for sure they were from Mr. Godot's mask either. I don't get the feeling she's covering from anymore, but press harder! But just after that, you turned towards the lights and called for help. Isn't that because you thought the lights were coming from Mr. Godot's mask? Yeah, I guess so. Maybe that's what I was thinking at the time. But I can't remember, after all. There was a person I couldn't identify in front of me. Maya's life was in terrible danger at the time. There's no way she can remember the details of the scene perfectly. Alright then, let's go on with the testimony. What did you do when you saw the red lights? Okay, so just to make sure, the previous one that we pressed was, just before it happened, I think I saw some red lights, 3 of them. I thought I'd ask for help, but just then I was splattered with blood. That blood. Was it Dahlia Hawthorne's blood? I think so, probably. Just at that moment, I heard a soft scream that seemed to be close by. It was a woman's voice. So that was when the killer stabbed the victim from behind with the murder weapon. Is that right? Without a doubt, Maya was in the middle of a really dangerous situation. Anyway, the victim was stabbed by the murder weapon. What happened after that? So, let's look at everything from the beginning one more time. Because I'm only like half paying attention. I shouldn't be doing this on the very final thing, but I don't know, it just happens when you're doing voices. Just before it happened, I think I saw some red lights, 3 of them. I thought I'd ask for help, but just then I was splattered with blood. And that she thought it was She wasn't dead though, and she struck back at the enemy behind her. Struck back? How do you know that? Well, you're right. I didn't see it exactly, but I couldn't tell by the sounds of the breathing and I could tell by the sounds of breathing and movement. And also, the smell of blood. You have witnessed more horror than any young lady should have ever had to in one life. So then, what did you do at that point? I couldn't move. I could just barely make out their shadows moving in the dark, but I had no idea what to do. Could you still see the red lights you mentioned earlier? Yes, I think so, but... Let's look at the previous one. She wasn't dead though, and she struck back at the enemy behind her. I see. Suddenly, the red lights went out and the whole area was dark. They went out? Yes, suddenly I couldn't see them at all. What could it mean? If the red lights were coming from Godot's mask, and they went out right in the middle of a fight. Maybe the mask was damaged. Or maybe it was knocked off. Or maybe the batteries ran out, right? Or maybe those little red pinhead-looking lights just stopped working. Pinhead-looking? Okay. What could have really happened then? Maybe the batteries just ran out. Just at that moment, there was a horrible scream. What do you mean by just at that moment? Do you mean the moment when the red lights went out? Yes, that's right. The scream that you heard then, was it Dahlia Hawthorne? I don't think so. I'm pretty sure it was a man's voice. What? So then, that scream came from the killer! That's gotta be it. I think Dahlia Hawthorne must have taken the blade and attacked the killer with it. And then the killer let out a scream of pain, huh? After that, the killer stole the blade back and delivered the final blow. I guess. Well, Mr. Wright, it seems to make sense to me. It sounds like a reasonable deduction, but I still kind of wonder. We're gonna hold off on that just for a second. That sounds about right. I think that's exactly how it happened. Of course, after all, my deductions are almost certainly always correct. Alright, let's go on with the testimony. The killer and the victim were fighting ferociously. What happened then? Right after that, Dahlia collapsed and I lost consciousness. And what about the killer that stabbed Dahlia? I'm sorry, I don't know. Really? It's true, Nick! I believe you. On this point, I'm sure Maya isn't lying. Ha! It appears that the darkness has proven to be your undoing, Trite. I've got to use this testimony to prove that Godot committed the murder. I really wish I didn't have to do it, but for some reason, I get the feeling that some part of Godot actually wants me to. I mean, it was pretty obvious from the start, I think. Now we're gonna say since we pressed everything, and in case we get the evidence wrong and everything, you know, we'll be able to skip past the statements that we want to press again. In case you want to press them again, just skip back to the most important parts. So just before it happened, I think I saw some red lights. 3 of them. I thought it asked for help, but just then I was splattered with blood. She wasn't dead though, and she struck back at the enemy behind her. Suddenly, the red lights went out and the whole area was dark. Just at that moment, there was a horrible scream. Right after that, Dahlia collapsed and I lost consciousness. Okay. Interesting. So I have it in my head. She saw the red lights. So she saw the red lights. She, what am I trying to say? She saw the red lights, stabbed, blood got, fought back, then heard a horrible scream, then she collapsed and Dahlia, I see. Alright, now I have an idea in my head, mental image in my head. Well, Mr. Wright, alright, there's a contradiction. I'm sorry to say this, but that interpretation would create an enormous contradiction. That makes sense. After all, my deductions are almost certainly never correct. Remember the testimony she just gave. Before the killer let out a scream, Maya said she had already been splattered by the victim's blood. In other words, the blade and the staff that had already been In other words, the blade and the staff had already been pledged to the victim. Ah! Is that right? She couldn't have struck back with a sword that was already stuck inside of her. The weapon that caused the killer to let out a scream must have been something other than the staff. Oh, well, it's pretty obvious what it is, isn't it, ladies and gentlemen? If you're so sure about that, then don't keep us waiting any longer, Trite. There's only one thing I can think of that could have been used as the weapon here. If Dahlia Hawthorne had already been stabbed in the back by the staff, what could she have used to strike back at the killer? I was about to go to profiles like that, what? The dagger. Naturally, the dagger the killer brought to the scene of the crime. Oh, that's right, I forgot about that! This dagger was found at the crime scene, stuck into a pine tree. Yes, the detective found that this morning and brought it to me. Dahlia, I read those two things were both toned very weird. At the pine tree! Yes, to me. I don't know, I always do that, I always tone these sentences weird. Dahlia Hawthorne struck back at the killer with this. And she managed to wound him as well! Just because he let out a scream doesn't mean that he was wounded. For all we know, the blood on the dagger could have been from the victim. Have you forgotten that the blood has already been tested? I don't know if they're gonna make us present any evidence during this, but you know, since we got that one right and everything, let's go ahead and save. But what if we got that one wrong? No, I highly doubt it. They wouldn't have played the music and everything, or they wouldn't have showed the evidence and everything. Have you forgotten that the blood has already been tested? Since we learned it wasn't the victim's blood, it must be the killer's blood. The killer must have a wound somewhere on his body. So you're saying the blood on this dagger belongs to the killer? Exactly. A DNA analysis of the blood would prove it beyond a shadow of a doubt. And yes, Mr. Godot, it would prove that it's your blood. Nice theory, Trite. Order! Order in the court! Is this the end? Have I done it? Even he won't be able to change the results of a scientific test. Let me ask you something, Trite. Let's just say that it turned out that I was the killer. Do you really think I would be stupid enough to leave evidence like that? What? Just think for a second. This dagger was found this morning by a detective and brought to me. There was already a bloodstain on it, correct? But even so, I was the one who brought this dagger here to the courtroom. Yes! What does that prove? Well, if I really were the killer, I could have washed the blade off and then planted another person's blood on it. It can't be! In any case, there's one thing I can guarantee, Trite. That blood, it doesn't belong to me. Not a chance! What?! In any event, it seems to be established that the killer was wounded. Alright then, witness, continue your testimony. Wait a minute! What's the problem? I know I probably shouldn't say this, but there's a big contradiction in Nick's explanation. Maya! This dagger! You said that it wounded the killer. That's right. But, if Mr. Goda had really been cut with a dagger, his clothes should be bloody or have a rip in them, right? Unless he had another suit. Maya? Maybe he just changed his clothes? That solved the contradiction pretty easily. What are you talking about? It's not that simple at all. Remember back to the day of the murder? Everyone that was on the inner temple site got trapped there. Yeah, you do have a point there. Ah, that's right! And once the bridge was fixed and the police headed for the inner temple, Mr. Goda was already there waiting for them. He never had a chance to change his clothes. Ah! But he could have brought a spear. Okay. Order! Order in the court! What the witness said to that? Well, maybe he brought a change of clothes with him. I said that as a joke, Phoenix. But no one could have predicted the lightning strike that shut down the bridge. Why would anyone have brought a change of clothes? Did the judges take smart pills during the last recess? Well then, maybe the killer took off his clothes before he committed the murder. That way he wouldn't get any blood on them. That's impossible, Trite. You know how cold it gets up there at that night. After a few minutes with no clothes on, you'd be frozen solid. Ah! Ha! So that's all you've got. I knew you weren't tough enough to finish this. Right now, if Mia Fey were here, she would have closed the book on this case already. If Mia Fey were here... So come on, Trite! Can you do it or not? Are they gonna ask us to present evidence or something? I don't know. I feel like they are. I feel like we're getting very, very, very close to having to present evidence. How about it, Mr. Wright? You've accused Mr. Goddard of being the killer. But can you prove it? Have you even one piece of evidence? The question isn't whether I can prove it or not. The fact is, I have to prove it. That's the only choice I have. I was taught that as one of the rules of being a lawyer. I can prove it. Awkward pause. See you guys in the next episode.